Checkpoint with me, Akisa Wandera. Tonight, we assess round one of devolution and what really should Kenyans expect in the next phase of devolution. Some have new governors in various counties. Some are second-time governors. One of my guests tonight here in studio, Governor Alex Tolgos from Elgeyo Marakwet. Many thanks for joining us. We're also joined by John Kinuthia, who works with the International Budget Partnership, as well as Edward Miano, who works with the Health Rights Advocacy. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here tonight. We're just coming from an election, and the country is seemingly not settled from that. We expect a Supreme Court ruling tomorrow. But down at the counties, I would want to start with you, Governor. How much hope is there for the success of devolution from the people?
Thank you so much, Gisa. I want to say that there's a lot of hope at the county level, bearing in mind that devolution just started in 2013 with a lot of challenges. And when you look at the successes or the gains that we've made during that first 4.5 years, compared to now what we want to start in our second term, I must say that there is a lot of hope. There's a lot of information that has gotten to the people at the county level, and also bearing in mind that despite the challenges that we are facing at the national level, I think elections and everything went well at the county level. And I must say that though we are late this financial year, we are looking forward to a quick start so that we can get down to business and start implementing our budget.
As a second-time governor, would you really say that strides have been made in the concept of devolution for Kenyans?
Yeah, I must say that there are a lot of strides that are made in all the sectors, and expectations of people and even the international community was that maybe devolution could take long before it stabilizes. But it started well, and when you look at all the 47 counties, we must say that there are a lot of development projects which have come up, and more importantly, the issue of citizen participation. Because I think in the past nobody even knew about the budgets, but now at the county level you realize that people have reached a level where now they are not even interested at the county government budgets, but they are now saying they want to know more about the national government budget, which to me I think the information that our people got in that 5 years has really enlightened them, and it's good for the development of our country.
Let's see it from the budgetary experts. He's among us. Looking at the report that was just released the other day by the Auditor General, the 2015-2016 Auditor General's report from the counties, what are some of the things you would pick out? And from the last 4.5 years, so to speak, of devolution, what would you say in terms of assessing how the budgetary procedure has been for the counties?
Well, thank you for inviting me today. I think from the beginning, I like to say that the devolution is a big step that we took as a country, and one of the big successes of it is actually that it never collapsed. Because there was a feeling that because we went with this big bang approach where we basically devolve our financial, administrative, and political functions, that something could go wrong. So the first step is that actually never really happened. And on the second bit is that one of the big things that we expected with devolution was that people would be interested with engaging with governments, because services were coming closer to them. The decisions that were being made in terms of planning and budgeting were coming closer to them. And in the first cycle of devolution, we've actually seen quite a lot of interest from the public. So whenever any of the reports come out from the Office of the Controller of Budget, you can see how much discussion that generates. So I think in terms of just generating that interest around how is my money being spent, we've definitely seen that go up. And that was one of the big objectives that we had with devolution.
But what else did you pick out from the first cycle of devolution?
Well, the other thing is that immediately, I think devolution kicked in. I think the big discussion was really rotating around the discussion on marginalization among counties. That has been a big thing. So you're comparing Murang'a to Migori, Migori to Turkana and the rest. But as devolution kicked in, we started realizing that there was a conversation about intra-county marginalization that exists. If you look at the poverty rates across our wards, there is a ward somewhere in Turkana that has a 99% poverty rate. And there's a ward somewhere in Nairobi by the name of Lower Savannah where the poverty is only 3%. So the inequality that actually exists among counties, when you go below just the county level, then we realize that's a place where we needed to take the discussion around devolution. And that's one of the things that we've really been trying to push. In fact, in the last week, we had something we call Equity Week, where we were basically discussing how exactly do we deal with those intra-county inequalities. Because once the money gets to the counties, then we have to think about what exactly is happening within the counties. And that's an important discussion.
Because it's being largely perceived that devolution really is just a concept that has not flown past the county headquarters.
Yes, and there are some very good examples from counties like Elgeyo Marakwet, where they've even come up with a mechanism to distribute the resources once they get to the counties among their 20 wards. And there's a very nice discussion that has come up from that. And last week we saw more than 6 counties come to Elgeyo Marakwet, come to try and figure out how has it worked, what did you guys do, and how did you think of this in the first place?
For you?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, as you have said, devolution was the best thing that happened in this country because we were able to take the decision-making process from the national to the county levels, whereby now the local leaders at the county level can be able to plan what development initiatives that want to take place in the county, what resources they have, where do they want to put those resources, and again it gives the community members an opportunity for them to say, is this where we want to put our resources? But the challenge that we could be encountering is now, after they have put the resources, how empowered are our people then so that they can be able to hold the government accountable? The accountability here, we have to be able to look at are the members aware that how much budget has actually been allocated, for example, to the health sector, to what areas is supposed to be spent in the health sector? Then, can we be able now to pick and say that the money that we're able to put into the health sector has actually been spent in the health sector? I think that is the challenge and that's the direction that we want to move, so that we can be able to empower our people, so that they can be able to get information. Because what we witness is that access to information is still not it's not there yet. There's a lot of information that is not being given out by the county governments. And if we give our Kenyans more information, they'll be able to be more informed, they'll be able to engage more, and they'll be able to contribute to the development initiative that the county governments have.
But even as we talk about where we would like to be from now, being that you're from the health rights advocacy, looking at where we are currently, health was one of the sectors that was supposed to be a major deliverable from devolution being fully devolved to the county governments. But look at what we have been treated to in the past few years. Like, let's just take, for instance, an example of this year. We've witnessed the longest doctors' strike. We've witnessed about 2 or 3 rounds of the nurses' strike. We've witnessed the clinical officers' strike in various counties. How would you say the counties are handling this very huge sector they have that has been fully devolved?
Actually, health is the most devolved function.
Yes.
That one is something we have to reckon with. The challenge that we have in the health sector, devolved, when it was devolved at once. It was supposed to be done in phases. Unfortunately, when it was devolved immediately, then all the functions were devolved. And that affected the capacities of the different counties. Because among the 47 counties, each has different capacities. And I think the way they would be able to manage the healthcare workers, the way they would be able to procure, the way they would be able to develop the infrastructures, and also the way they would be able to deliver the quality services. I think that's where we have a big challenge. But what we are witnessing is quite a lot of developments that are taking place now with the new Health Act, because I think what was lacking was a good policy again, which would be able to look at the roles of the national government and the county government. I think we were lacking that policy, but now that policy is in place, we should now be able to have the county government be able to put their policies in place and be able to implement those policies in place. Then the national government will be able now to know what resources need to be delivered to the county government, and the county government should be able to implement. So with this quite good hope that we hope that with the new developments that have taken place in the health sector, we should be able to see more services be delivered to the people. Yes.
The definition of roles, as he says, what should the national government do? What should the county government do? Is this something that you as a governor, even in the first round of devolution, was it a challenge for you? and the county government?
Thank you, Akisa. I think one of the challenge that we really faced as county government is that there was not that coordination or good understanding between the national and the county government. And when you talk about health, I think you realize that during the first year of devolution, there was a lot of discussion about whether health should be devolved or should be returned back to national government. And the challenge was actually the way national and county were handling the situation. And I think if the situation that we are at the moment was there in 2013, I think we could have done a lot in health, because you realize now that even during the nurses strike, both the national government, the CS, PS, and the Council of Governors were working together to ensure that nurses go back to their work. But in 2013, the scenario was different. But I must say that health being one of the functions that was fully devolved, there's a lot of development that has happened in that sector. And what we are just saying is that now we need to continue collaborating both national and county in order to ensure that all the challenges are dealt with. And my happiness is that when you look at the situation at the moment, both the elected leaders, governors, and senators, you realize that first of all, as Council of Governors, we have we have members who some of them were National Assembly members, others were senators, and others were also from the private sector. So I think now there is that great understanding between different sectors of these of the both national and county.
So what you're saying is the relationship now between the national government and county governments is cordial.
Yeah. Now it's called cordial. Unlike in the past, and you realize that even in the beginning we had a lot of court cases where
we've seen the
Council of Governors going to court maybe to stop national government from taking over some of the functions, which I think, to me, I didn't agree with that, because we should have sat in a round table and discussed how can we solve all these challenges, because at the end of the day we are serving the same people. You cannot come to a county and find people who are being served by national and others who are served by county government. All of them are served by the same national and county government. So
remember, we also have counties that are passing motions to not have anything to do with the national government. So when you say the relationship is now cordial, I doubt it's with all the other 47 counties.
Okay, in terms of basing that, looking at the Council of Governors, because you realize that now when we are at the Council of Governors, we sit in the same table with the CSS and PSS and discuss issues. That didn't happen during the onset of devolution. Yeah, and I think if we continue like that, we will even make more strides than what we made during the first phase of devolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kinuthia, I want us to just try and break down that audit report by the Auditor General. I was going through it before the show, and some of the things that came out is money is being spent that was not budgeted for. You find in various counties people have gone overboard with the budget, more than 400% of it. Money has been spent that has not been budgeted for. What is really happening in the county? Is it lack of information, lack of education on how to go about this? Just break it down for us, because you work with these departments.
Well, I think one of the challenges that we have to appreciate was there for counties from the beginning. As the human resource came in and counties were setting up their systems, definitely there were a number of challenges that came up. And so if you look at most of the audit reports, all the way from 2013 up to the point where we have audit reports, the latest audit reports, is you see quite a number of systemic challenges that are actually raised in those reports. So it's not so much just about overspending and the rest. There are some systemic challenges that we really have to think about as we get into this second cycle for the counties. And in addition to that, of course, is also the capacities of county assemblies, because at the end of the day, every budget that is prepared by the governors has to be passed by the county assemblies. And so the understanding of county assemblies in terms of how they interrogate the budgets, in terms of how they have the back and forth about what priorities are being funded, I think that's also something that can be improved. One of the things that we did is we insisted that we must have governors with degrees, but MCAs can come in without that. So there's definitely a challenge in terms of that discussion. And if you look at the first cycle of devolution, we saw a lot of standoffs between governors and county assemblies.
Yes.
So definitely there's some work that we need to do in terms of that discussion. I'm calling it a discussion because it's supposed to be exactly that. So it's a discussion between the assembly, between the county executives, but also the public. However, I think in terms of the overspending and the rest, I think some of those cases are basically that anytime you have to spend beyond your budget, you have to go back to the assembly to get approval for that. And so this could also be a case where the Auditor General is raising issues that there are some counties that are spending without approval from the county assemblies. So all this revolves around the processes and the policies that are supposed to guide those systems to run well. And there are definitely some areas that still need improvement as we go forward.
And Edward, you mentioned but all of you seemed to agree that there's a certain degree of information that people down the counties now have that they did not have when we didn't have the devolved system. But even as we talk about them being aware that there should be a budget, them being aware that I need to know how my money is being sent, just how much do they participate, especially in the decision-making process in their various counties?
I think that's where we have a challenge, the participation part of it, in the sense that we really don't have good public participation. One, because of the time that is given. You realize that an advertisement is made today, that there will be a forum the next day. That one does not give me enough time to prepare so that I can go and put good input into that document which should be discussed. The other requirement is that under the PFM Act, the governors are supposed to put in place a forum whereby the citizens could be able to participate. This is so that they can be able to give their views. But in reality, that has not taken place because the PFM Act again did not make it a mandatory requirement that they put this forum in place. But what that means is that now most of the budgets that are being made are not very inclusive of all the citizens in the county. But that's where now we realize we get some gaps that are not there. That should be addressed. I'm sure with the next phase of the governors which have come in place now, with this now realization that it's important to carry everybody on board so that whatever decisions that are made, they are made for good faith and the implementation of those resources are being implemented adequately. I realize that could be a good opportunity. And again, the relationship between the governors and the county assemblies. I realize the past government, there was quite a big challenge. But I'm sure now with the realization that the various committees within the county assemblies, if their capacity enhanced, because I think what we realized again was the lack of adequate capacity for them to be able to interrogate some of these documents, to understand also the budget making process, the issues of what is their role about the accountability, where they are going to see to ensure that the resources are being utilized as they have been approved. That back and forth between the governors and the county assemblies. I think that's something good that we hope that with the new crop of leaders within the county assembly, having realized what happens to the previous ones who are having some squabbles with the executive, I think we are hopeful that this new government will be able to deliver and they will be able to address the citizens' needs adequately.
But the Auditor General has also raised a red flag on the amount of spending on MCAs and county staff, especially on allowances and when they go out for trips. That back and forth that he's talking about, it seems that governors have also been put in a situation where they have to impress members of the county assembly for their policies and agenda to go forward. I mean, what do you think?
I think just adding what Edward said, I think one of the things that we have to think about, I think it's nice that more people are discussing budgets. And it's nice that more people are trying to understand why their governments are spending the money the way they are doing. But I think we have to think of it beyond just getting people into a forum to discuss budgets. I think the important thing is what kind of deliberation actually happens when we have those forums. And how good those forums will eventually be is dependent on what kind of information is provided during those discussions. And I think that's where we've seen some challenges. In a study that we do twice every year, looking at the information that has been put out by county governments. In law, we've said all these documents must be out by this time. And so there is a very clear direction on what documents must be made public. And in the 3 years that we've done this study, only 1 out of 5 documents that should have been made public has actually been made public. And that does affect the quality of discussion. So it probably is a case where when you go into the forums, there won't be really a breakdown of that this is the travel budget and this is the allowances budget and the rest. So the discussion we are having in there has really been constrained to just as such a part of the budget that is really development, the brick and mortar side. And so most of the time is what projects do you want? So it's always a wish list, a wish list. And if you look at our budgets, there are 3 main components to it. The first one, of course, is where you have your salaries, which take quite a large part of the budget. And the second bit is really the ongoing projects, so multi-year projects that we have to do over time. And then the remaining bit is where we are discussing new projects. So if we are discussing new projects every time we meet, then we're only discussing a very small portion of the budget. But the big areas that many citizens might be interested in, everything from health staffing are actually in the recurrent side of the budget. So it's going to continue to be a challenge for devolution if we limit ourselves to a CDF kind of discussion only.
Then we go back to the issue of access to information.
Yes, access to information is a key challenge that we have to address as we get into the second cycle.
Governor?
Okay, what I want to say is that the issue of...
First, do you think the people of Elgeyo Marakwet have been able to access as much information as they can about the manner in which the county government is conducting itself, especially when it comes to expenditure?
I want to say that in Elgeyo Marakwet, I think the situation is different because during the financial year 2013-2014, we tried to implement our budget by deciding on what to do at the county level. And it raised a lot of issues, and it prompted the county assembly to enact an act which is now operational, Equitable Development Act, which empowers the citizens to decide on what projects or how their budget should be distributed. And I think in that act, the citizens are given an upper hand to decide.
I would want you to hold on to that thought. When we get back, I want you to continue with that particular statement on just how it has been for the people of Elgeyo Marakwet. But let's take a quick break. We wrap it up for our viewers on KTN Home, but on KTN News, we will continue with this conversation as we assess the first round of devolution and see what really we should be looking forward to as a country. Don't go too far. This is Checkpoint.